Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I am speaking to you now from in front of the main building where the Tokyo Summit will be held. As you can see in the center, this is the hall that will host the conference. This place has been named Ocean's Edge due to its proximity to the shore. Officials have set the beginning of next week as the date for the start of the summit's proceedings. It is worth noting that the local authorities have taken all necessary security measures to protect visitors from any potential incidents. We have also received information that more than 20,000 police officers are deployed across the area.
I'm Shinichi Kudo, a pretty well-known detective. I was at a theme park with my fiancé, Ron Mori, when I ended up trailing this guy from a shady group called the Black Organization doing some kind of sketchy deal. I was so focused on spying on him that I totally missed his partner sneaking up behind me. He knocked me out and forced me to take this weird pill.
When I finally woke up, my body had shrunk to the size of a little kid. I knew if those criminals found out I was still alive, they'd come back to finish the job. So I hid out at Dr. Agasa's place and told him everything. When Rand saw me there and asked who I was, I panicked and blurted out the name Conan Edogawa. To track down the guys who did this to me, I moved in with Ren and her dad, who's a private eye. Besides Dr. Agasa, a few others know my real identity. One is Haibara, who actually used to be in the Black Organization. She managed to escape them by taking APTX, the exact same drug they made me swallow, so she ended up shrinking down, just like I did. My parents are in on the secret too. My dad is the world-famous novelist Yusaku Kudo, and my mom is Yukiko Kudo.
Conan and the gang were chilling at Dr. Agasa's place, messing around with a high-tech drone. Word is, this thing can fly up to 10,000 meters high. Dr. Agasa even joked about riding it to check out the view from Mount Everest. Meanwhile, Conan was sarcastically wondering to himself, if the cops actually arrested the doc for doing that, what flavor of jail food should he bring him? He and Haibara weren't exactly thrilled by these useless, wacky inventions, so they headed back inside to catch the news. On May 1st, the Tokyo Summit was set to happen at the brand new Edge of Ocean Resort. On that exact same day, the Mars probe, Swan, was scheduled to return to Earth. Suddenly, a breaking news alert caught Conan's eye. There was a massive explosion at the Edge of Ocean Resort. Dr. Agasa figured it was just your run-of-the-mill terrorist attack and didn't think much of it. But Haibara spotted a familiar face in the background of the news footage. It was Toru Amuro, the guy who works at Café Poirot right under the detective agency. Over at the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department boardroom, Officers Takagi and Sato were giving their report. The explosion was supposedly caused by a gas pipe. That makes zero sense, someone pointed out. The gas system at the resort is controlled remotely via the internet, IoT, and the place isn't even online yet. Did the gas pipes just decide to blow up on their own? Suddenly, Public Security Officer Kazami rushed in, announcing the real cause was likely the high-voltage cables. They'd found fingerprints on the door of the cable room, and guess whose they were? Kogoro Mori's. Talk about terrible luck. The guy was literally just sitting at home, minding his own business, and disaster knocked on his door. Takagi and Kazami headed over to the Mori Detective Agency. Kogoro was absolutely furious, jumping up and down yelling, "Why on earth would I even go to the edge of ocean? Do I look like I have that much free time?" Officer Kazami didn't even bat an eye and just kept searching the place for clues. Conan pulled Takagi outside and asked about the nasty bruises all over Kazami's face. Takagi explained that Kazami was actually at the explosion site. Originally, the regular police were going to write it off as an accident, but since the Public Security Bureau, PSB, found Kogoro's prints, they swooped in. Suddenly, Shinichi's phone rang. It was Ran, panicking that they were about to arrest her dad. Conan bolted back to the agency. Surprise. Kazami somehow found the summit schedule and a map of the resort right there on Kogoro's computer. Now Kogoro was in deep trouble. framed so perfectly he couldn't talk his way out of it. Kazami whipped out the silver bracelets, slapped them on Kogoro, and hauled him away. Conan rushed outside and caught Amuro sweeping in front of the cafe. He noticed Amuro had weird cuts on his face too. It clicked instantly. Amuro was there when the bomb went off. Didn't Haibara see him on the TV screen? Conan knew right then that Amuro was the mastermind pulling the strings. If they did nothing, the explosion would have been ruled an accident. So, Amuro and Kazami framed a convenient suspect. The fingerprints and computer files were totally planted, just to force an official investigation. Shockingly, Amuro basically admitted it, saying, "I did this because I have things I swore to protect, even if it costs me my life." Luckily, Conan has a genius squad backing him up. He had Dr. Agasa use the drone to film the scattered debris around the resort, and Haibara took on the puzzle of piecing the wreckage back together. The twist? The bomb was actually an internet-connected pressure cooker. The whole building ran on a smart IoT management system, and based on the flying pots and pans, they figured out the kitchen was ground zero. What Conan didn't realize, though, was that every move he made was being recorded. Someone had sneakily installed spyware on his phone. Ran begged her mom, Erikisaki, to find a top-tier lawyer for her dad, but weirdly enough, no one would touch the case. While everyone was stressing out, a bespectacled lawyer named Kyoko Tachibana suddenly showed up and volunteered to defend him. Conan and the gang eagerly asked about her track record. The shocker? Her win rate was a flat 0%. That meant, if she performed at her usual level, Kogoro was definitely going to prison. Digging into Kyoko's past cases, Conan noticed an old case involving an illegal hack into NAZU, the space agency. Apparently, a game company employee accidentally breached their system. Kyoko gave her usual performance and lost. What's crazy is that the prosecutor from that space agency case is the exact same prosecutor handling Kogoro's case now, Makoto Kusakabe. Talk about a messy situation. Prosecutor Kusakabe actually did his homework. He realized Kogoro had zero motive and was likely being framed. He took his findings straight to his boss, Sayoko Iwai, but she shut him down, telling him to indict Kogoro anyway, because the Public Security Bureau demanded it. In the Japanese police system, the PSB has absolute power. They basically step all over the prosecutors, and what they say goes. Inspector Magura brought Conan some good news. Kusakabe wasn't giving up and decided to do some extra digging to prove Kogoro couldn't have done it. Right around then, Amuro popped up carrying a bag, acting all worried about Kogoro. Conan saw right through it. Total fox guarding the henhouse vibes. The guy definitely didn't have good intentions, so Conan kicked him out with a couple of sharp words. But as Amuro was leaving, he crossed paths with Kazami. They exchanged a quick whisper. Conan didn't miss a beat and slipped a bug onto Kazami. Amuro didn't realize Conan had played him, so he went to secretly meet Kazami at a supermarket, completely unaware that Conan was listening to every word. Just as suspected, Amuro and his team used Kogoro as a scapegoat so they could investigate the real bomber without any red tape. Indictment day finally arrived. Kusakabe and Kyoko went to court to file the paperwork. It was over in a flash, and the second they stepped out, Kyoko made an excuse to use the restroom and vanished. Conan spotted Kazami lurking nearby, so he trailed Kyoko through the courthouse hallways. He didn't find Kazami, but he suddenly heard Kyoko's voice coming through his earpiece from the bug. What was going on? Was lawyer Kyoko secretly working with Kazami too? Is the PSB's web really this tangled? As the police kept digging, they confirmed that on the day of the explosion, a malware program called NOR hacked into the resort's network. It was super elusive, and the PSB still had no clue who was behind it. Kazami was giving a briefing in a meeting room while Conan eavesdropped from outside. Conan thought he was the hunter, but he was actually the prey. Amuro snuck up right behind him, called Kazami out, and pulled the bug off Kazami right in front of Conan's face. Busted. Conan decided to put all his cards on the table, straight up calling Amuro out as a secret intelligence agent for the PSB. Kazami was stunned. Still in shock, Kazami blurted out something crazy. He called Amuro a murderer, claiming Amuro pushed a suspect to commit suicide the previous year. Suddenly, all of Tokyo descended into pure chaos. Smartphones went rogue, microwaves sparked, washing machines spun out of control, and TVs exploded. Pretty much every internet-connected IoT device went haywire all at once. Even the police precinct's equipment wasn't spared. Watching the news unfold, Conan finally figured it out. He frantically called Inspector Magure, told him all the crazy appliances were connected to the internet, and yelled at him to cut the city's network to stop the madness. He explained that the resort explosion happened the exact same way. The culprit hacked the gas system, filled the room, and then triggered a smart pressure cooker to blow the place sky high. Therefore, it was literally impossible for Kogoro, a guy who barely knows how to use a smartphone, to pull this off. The police dug deeper and found out Kogoro's PC was indeed hacked and used as a proxy, so of course the blame would fall on him. Poor Kogoro. What did he even do to deserve this nightmare? Later that day, Eri Kisaki got her hands on a background check for lawyer Kyoko, which Shinichi had heavily insisted on. The report showed that Kyoko used to run her own law firm and had a clerk named Fumikazu, also known as 231. He was the guy arrested for illegally accessing the game company's servers, and he ended up taking his own life in police custody. Putting the pieces together, it was obvious Amuro was the officer in charge of Fumikazu's case. The plot thickens. And the biggest twist. The prosecutor who handled Fumikazu's case back then was none other than Chief Prosecutor Sayoko Iwai, Kusakabe's current boss, who actually got promoted specifically because of that case. While they were talking, Kyoko suddenly walked in and immediately spotted her own background report on the table. Conan flat out asked her about her connection to Fumikazu. Kyoko got super emotional, insisting Fumikazu was completely innocent. After he was locked up, a PSB officer visited him, and shortly after that, Fumikazu took his own life. There was a lot of shady stuff surrounding him, like why he got stripped of his legal apprentice credentials right after graduating. Everyone thought he was just a bad apple, but Kyoko believed in him, saying, "Everyone has a public face and a hidden one. What you see is only one side of the truth." Since Kogoro wasn't going to be indicted anymore, Kyoko had no reason to stick around, so she left. Officer Shiratori was heading out too. Ever since the Nor malware hacked the space agency last year, they had developed a tracking system for it, and Shiratori was going to help investigate. Wait, today is May 1st, the day the Tokyo Summit opens, and the day the Swan probe returns to Earth. A light bulb went off in Conan's head, and the dots finally connected. He figured out the real truth. He quickly asked Eri's assistant to pull the space agency's files, then bolted out the door. Conan ran through the streets like the wind, with Amuro hot on his heels. Conan suddenly stopped, pulled out his phone, and smirked, telling Amuro he knew about the spyware the whole time. He kept it on purpose as bait to reel Amuro in. Conan said he was taking him to meet the real suspect. Today was the exact anniversary of Fumikazu's 231's death. The culprit was definitely tied to Fumikazu, which meant they were about to pull off something massive. Right on cue, absolute mayhem erupted on the streets. Smart cars connected to the internet got hacked, swerving out of control and causing massive pile-ups. Conan and Amuro sprinted to stop the mastermind from causing a full-blown catastrophe. Conan had realized the whole point of hacking the space agency was to crash the returning Swan capsule. But where exactly was it going to land? Meanwhile, total panic broke out at Police HQ when the power was completely cut and the backup generators were destroyed. Then came even more terrifying news. The space agency realized Swan had been hacked and its flight path altered. The return capsule failed to detach properly from the main body, and if the main body burned up in the atmosphere, the capsule's landing zone would shift drastically. Don't fear a bold criminal, fear a brilliant one. This elite hacker literally turned the space agency upside down. Honestly, the black organization should be crying tears of shame right now. Look at this guy's accomplishments, then look at yourself, Jin. After recalculating, the new drop zone for the capsule was confirmed: the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. The culprit was planning to wipe out police headquarters. The cops scrambled to evacuate the building, and everyone within a 1-kilometer radius. They had to move over 150,000 people. Then, more bad news from the space agency. They couldn't override the Swan commands because the hacker changed all the passwords. A whole room of elite geniuses couldn't outsmart one rogue hacker. Absolute madness. Suddenly, Amuro had a crazy idea, but he needed Dr. Agasa's help. Amuro was finally going to reveal a secret he'd been hiding for a long time. He was going to use the doc's new high-tech drone to pull off his plan, and surprisingly, the ones piloting it would be the detective boys. The police spent all night evacuating citizens, sending about 30,000 people to shelter in the massive observation tower at the edge of Ocean Resort. The Mori family was right there with them. Ran, Sonoko, and Eri had gone to pick up Kogoro from the station, only to get swept up in the chaos. Ran tried calling Shinichi to ask what to do, but couldn't get through. Conan and Amuro arrived at the police headquarters, which was swarming with people trying to evacuate. Through the crowd, they spotted a guy walking calmly and confidently, tapping away on his phone. Conan suddenly grabbed the guy's arm, making him drop the phone. Amuro snatched it up and looked at the screen. It was logged straight into the space agency's control system. The mastermind was none other than Prosecutor Makoto Kusakabe. Honestly, Conan had suspected him from the start. Back when everyone thought the resort explosion was caused by cables, Kusakabe was the one who conveniently submitted the remains of a smart rice cooker as evidence. Plus, he was the prosecutor for the space hack case last year, which is where he learned how to use the NOR system. When he found out the space agency made a tracking program, he purposely used an unsecured phone to log in, just so the cops would find his digital breadcrumbs. When Kusakabe realized Conan had him totally figured out, he lost his cool, snatched his phone back, and made a run for it. But Conan and Amuro chased him down relentlessly and pinned him. Kusakabe confessed that he was sick and tired of the Public Security Bureau's arrogance and absolute power. He orchestrated this entire disaster just to drag their pride through the mud. To avoid killing civilians, he chose to blow up the edge of Ocean Resort before the summit started, knowing the place would be crawling with PSB officers. And right before crashing the capsule into Police HQ, he deliberately cut the power to force an early evacuation. He probably knew there might still be innocent casualties, but in his mind, it was all for the greater good to take down the PSB. To him, sacrificing a few lives for the cause was totally justified. After all, didn't his secret informant sacrifice his life for him? Conan had already guessed that Fumikazu, the guy who supposedly killed himself, was actually Kusakabe's secret informant. The dead giveaway? Kusakabe's phone passcode was 88231, basically Fumikazu's inmate number. Kusakabe tearfully explained that last year, he sent Fumikazu undercover to the shady game company to gather evidence. But the PSB swooped in and arrested Fumikazu. Fumikazu took the fall completely, never once ratting out Kusakabe. Kusakabe begged his boss, Iwai, to drop the charges, but she pushed forward, clearly under heavy pressure from the PSB. Then came the news that Fumikazu had killed himself in his cell. Kusakabe was convinced Fumikazu died to protect him, and that the PSB were the real murderers. So, he picked the anniversary of his death to exact his revenge. Amuro demanded Kusakabe hand over the abort code for the capsule, but Kusakabe flat out refused. That's when Conan told him to look at the phone screen. Kusakabe's jaw dropped. Fumikazu was standing on the roof of the police building, alive. Amuro explained that Fumikazu never died. The PSB had figured out who he really was and faked his death to put him in witness protection. Through the screen, Fumikazu begged Kusakabe to hand over the code for the sake of justice and innocent lives, warning that if the capsule hit the building, He would actually die this time! Literally seconds before the capsule hit the atmosphere, Kusakabe caved and gave up the password. They managed to reconnect to the capsule, but it immediately entered the atmospheric blackout zone. Worse, the parachute jammed. Amuro didn't panic though. He had a plan B. He had Dr. Agasa rig the new drone with explosives, planning to detonate it right next to the capsule to blast it off course towards the Pacific Ocean. Haibara crunched the trajectory numbers, and the detective boys took the joysticks. As the blazing capsule tore through the sky, the parachute still refusing to open, Dr. Agasa yelled at the kids to launch the drone following Haibara's flight path. The capsule was hurtling down like a massive fireball, and the tiny drone zipped up to meet it. Just as they were about to cross paths, Amuro slammed the detonator. A massive explosion rocked the sky, successfully knocking the capsule off its collision course. The shockwave even popped the jammed parachute open. Crisis averted. Before the cops hauled Kusakabe away, Fumikazu hopped on another video call. Turns out, he wasn't on a roof at all. He was chilling at Dr. Agasa's house using a green screen. He thanked Kusakabe for fighting so hard for him. Right at that moment, lawyer Kyoko walked in and was absolutely floored to see Fumikazu alive and well. Conan broke it all down. Lawyer Kyoko was actually an undercover collaborator working for Kazami. Back in the day, the PSB asked her to hire Fumikazu so they could keep a close eye on him. But over time, working side by side, Kyoko realized Fumikazu was a genuinely good, innocent guy. So when the PSB suddenly arrested him, she fought tooth and nail to get him out, but they totally iced her out. When she heard he killed himself in jail, she was furious, feeling like the police had used her to trap him and then left him to die. From that day on, she harbored a deep grudge against the PSB and waited for her chance to strike back. That's exactly why she took Kogoro's case. The PSB expected her to play nice and lose quickly, so everything would go according to their schedule. But Kyoko went rogue. She actively tried to sabotage the legal proceedings to make the PSB look completely incompetent and embarrass them in front of the whole country, all to avenge Fumikazu. But seeing him alive completely washed away her thirst for revenge. Realizing her legal sabotage was wrong, she decided to turn herself in and face the music. With the main mystery solved, Conan noticed his phone blowing up with texts from Ran. She was telling him she was sheltering in the observation tower at the edge of Ocean Resort. At the exact same moment, Amuro got an update. The capsule's new trajectory was slightly off, and it was heading straight for the tower. There were 30,000 people trapped in there, and 0 time to evacuate. Amuro threw Conan into his car and peeled out, breaking literally every traffic law in existence as they raced towards the tower. The falling capsule was now visible to the naked eye. Only 5 minutes to impact. Amuro practically shoved his foot through the floorboard, pressing the gas, pulling off insane, reckless stunts that had Conan squeezing his eyes shut in pure terror. They finally skidded to a halt at a half-finished skyscraper right next to the tower. Seeing the pure desperation in Conan's eyes, Amuro couldn't help but crack a wild smile. They took the battered car all the way up to the top floor. Amuro gunned the engine so hard, sparks flew off the front tires, and he literally launched the car off the side of the building. Hanging in midair, Conan bailed out of the flying car, unleashed a soccer ball from his belt, and kicked it with absolutely everything he had, using his power-enhancing shoes. The ball shot out like a heat-seeking missile, slamming dead center into the Swan capsule. The sky lit up like a 4th of July fireworks show. Don't even try to ask me how the physics of that worked. The capsule safely splashed down into the ocean. Ran was safe, and honestly, they only survived thanks to Conan's crazy kick and Amuro's gravity-defying driving skills. When the dust finally settled, Conan looked at Amuro and asked the million-dollar question. Why did you insist on dragging Kogoro into this? Amuro just smirked. Because if Kogoro is in danger, you'll fight like your life depends on it to solve the case. It made my job a whole lot easier. Looks like the sly little fox Conan got completely outplayed this time. In the aftermath, The news reported that everything inside the capsule was perfectly intact, and miraculously, there were 0 casualties. The PSB only charged Kusakabe, keeping everyone else's name out of it. All in all, a pretty epic happy ending.